Hello, everyone, and welcome in to my channel and to this podcast tonight, the Real Talk with Coach Sherri podcast here on YouTube. I appreciate you for stopping by. If you are watching this on replay, welcome in and let me know that you are watching this on replay. If you're here live and in the chat, drop down and let me know that you're in the building live and in effect. I am excited to be sharing this information with you tonight. You know, a lot of us have things going on in our lives, personally, professionally, and otherwise, that can cause challenges, roadblocks, bumps in the road. And there are ways that you can utilize those challenges to be more of a positive impact than negative. And that's by reframing them. So many people allow challenges to pause them, to paralyze them, to make them give up, turn around, go the other way. But I'm here to share 5 tips on how to reframe those challenges. So, just like any other podcast or live that I do, I want you to get your pen and paper out so that you can take these notes on the 5 tips on reframing your challenges. So, like anything else that I share, I don't want you to keep this to yourself. And I tell you this all the time, but the information that you glean from today, share it with your family and friends. Don't be the best one in your circle. Everyone has room for improvement. Everyone really wants to improve. A lot of times they just don't know how or what to do. And I want you to use these podcasts as that, as that resource, as that reference that you can share with others. This really makes great conversation. I know a lot of times people get those aha moments where it's like, oh, you know what Coach Sherri is sharing with me, I already knew it, but I forgot it. Or I knew it, but I don't know, I just stopped implementing it. I just started doing my own thing and it really wasn't working, but I didn't even have time to redirect myself, to take a moment to pause and just kind of figure it all out. So that's one of the other reasons why I love doing these podcasts, and just want you to really focus on doing better for yourself. Reframing challenges is an opportunity for growth. It can significantly enhance your resilience and problem solving skills. Being resilient, that's who we are, that's what we do, especially if you're over 50. We are very resilient. And problem solving is very important. Sometimes challenges can make your mind foggy and make you realize, like, oof, I don't even know, forget it, I'm tired, I just need to lay down. And you don't get to solve those problems. You just, again, you give up, you let it just run rampant. So, with these tips, you'll be more resilient and you'll build up your problem solving skills for sure. So now, I always do this when I am, doing a podcast, especially when it's more of a training kind of thing. And I always have the images, but I tend to forget to put them up at the right time. So bear with me, because in this podcast, I'm going to definitely be more intentional to put up what needs to go up. All right. So let's look at number 1. And I have my notes right here as well so I can stay on track. I don't want to keep you too long, but if you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop down in the chat for sure. I appreciate you all for being here. All right, so the first one of how, one of the first tip on reframing challenges is you really need to shift your perspective. You need to shift your perspective. That's number 1. That's so important, because instead of viewing challenges as obstacles, you need to start looking at them as chances to learn and grow. Next time you find yourself in a challenge, ask yourself, what can I learn from this situation? Sometimes when I'm going through something, I'll look up at God, like, in the sky, and I'll be like, God, what am I supposed to learn from this? What does this all mean? I know when I first became my mother's primary caregiver, and y'all, when she came home from the hospital, it was like having a premature baby. I didn't think I was ever going to be able to sleep. She was on a ventilator. She had a feeding tube, trachea. She was in a hospital bed. She could still walk, believe it or not, but with assistance. It was just, she was just relearning things. She couldn't really talk as well anymore. She had a speak assist machine. And I just remember one day looking up in the sky and I was like, God, what do you have for me? Is this what you have for me? And that's when he told me to redo my group coaching, and that's when I started coaching women all over the country, but it was virtually. And even back then I used WebEx, but it wasn't the type that you can see. This is back in 08, 09. But you can do chats and things like that, so it was pretty cool. But that's when you have to ask yourself, what can I learn from this situation? How can I overcome this situation? And again, I remember when we were doing a real estate development, my husband and we were novice. We were a young couple. We were a Black young couple, and it was a lot going on. And we have 4 different floor plans for this real estate development. And for some reason, it was so challenging for me to remember the names of each of the floor plans and the specs of each home, like what were the square footages and things of that nature. I have no idea why I could not fully recall all of that information. And for that project, I was the director of sales and marketing. Also, I was in collaboration with our financial person as the CFO. So I really needed to know all of that information because I also helped put together the packages for our investors when investors came into town, just sharing with them what these plans were, what we were doing. And I really needed to know, and I was so determined to learn what those floor plans entailed. And when I learned it and became proficient, oh my goodness, it felt so good. So think about those challenges that you may be going through, things that are so hard right now, but then all of a sudden, you're great at it. And that feeling is so good. So you definitely need to shift your perspective and figure out, what can you learn? How can you grow from this? That's one of the things that really drove me when I coached girls basketball. I coached a young all-star team, and a couple of the players, don't ask me how they made it on the team, but it's okay, were not necessarily all-stars at the beginning of the season. And they developed, and it was so challenging though coaching them because they were novice to the game. And so I was like, okay, even though they're learning, I needed to know for myself as a coach, what can I learn from this situation? And I learned how to be more patient. I learned how to give them grace because they were still learning. I learned how to really, do things step by step versus, oh, it's just simple, like do the layup like this. No, it's the step by step. So I definitely learned how to slow down and really, really not just coach, but teach. So that is very important, right? So you want to shift your perspective. And instead of viewing it as a challenge or an obstacle, you want to just really make it more of a chance. This is a chance that you're going to grow. When I encounter something that's really challenging, difficult, hard, whatever you want to call it, I always look around, especially if I'm with my team or, even if I'm by myself, I'll say, oh my goodness, like this is going to be so exciting. I look at it as an exciting time because I know that I'm going to grow. I know I'm going to be better. And when you get to a certain age, I'm double nickel. I'm 55 years old. There's not much that I feel that is left for me to learn in that way. But there is, I absolutely. So when I get those opportunities to get into a situation that I've never done before, that I never thought I would have to do or whatever, I get excited because I know I'm about to learn and be even that much better and impactful. I'm going to pause right here. I see that Vicky's World is in the building. Hello to you. How are you doing? Great to see you. It's been a minute. Listen, I was looking at my old lives, my very first ones when we were all in each other's lives and really supportive. And those were some good times. It was definitely a serious tribe. Y'all, if you are new to this platform as a content creator, or if you're considering being a content creator, one of the main things that I feel is very important is for you to find your tribe, a group of people that have similar goals and values as you. I know that we have this whole over 50 movement going on, and there are some phenomenal content creators in their 40s, 50s, and beyond that are just out here spreading wisdom, bringing joy, positive, uplifting energy. And they are out there. When you see them, connect with them, talk in their lives, talk on their pre recorded videos, leave a comment, and connect with each other. Vicky's World was part of that original tribe that I found because that was the one thing I knew being in business. The most important thing is networking. And I was like, okay, YouTube low key is a business, and it's like a virtual networking platform. So you got to find your people though, and you have to communicate with them. They're not going to know that you were there watching them or being part of their live if you aren't communicating with them or thumbsing it up or anything like that. And I get it. A lot of times people are looking from their TV, which is great too. But if you can later on just drop back down and just say, hey, I really enjoyed what your topic was or what you were talking about, or it really resonated with me. I'm going through the same thing. I get it. Because when I'm listening to these over 50 content creators, a lot of things that they're saying, some of the challenges that they are encountering, I'm like, yo, that's what's up. I know exactly what you're talking about for sure. They were. And listen, Vicky, I remember being in those lives, and sometimes I would be waiting to go into my daughter's basketball game or something, but I was like, no, I'm going to stick with this live for just a little while longer. People were cooking, people had merchandise that they made, beautiful things, head wraps. I remember, I can't recall her name right now, but she was from Louisiana, and her son, Adrian. I was talking about him and Gigi when I can't remember Gigi's entire name for her channel, but I was talking about how they used to cook, and I was just listening to my very first live, and that's what I was talking about. So it was cool. Yes, this over 50 group is no joke. It is no joke. And well, I'm going to leave that for a pre-record, but people need not to sleep on the over 50. We've gone through so much. If you were born in the 60s, 70s, I'm not going to say early 80s necessarily for this age group, but definitely the mid to late 60s and 70s. Listen, we've seen so much. We are one of the most resilient age groups. We have been there for the color TV. We've been there for the 24-hour television shows, stations. We've been there when the first cordless phone came out, two-way calling, call waiting, three-way calling. We've seen so many changes and had to adapt. We are very adaptable. We are very resilient. And a lot of people take that for granted. And I don't at all. And listen, if somebody over 50 says they don't want to do it or they don't know how to do it, it's because they don't feel like doing it. It's not because they can't learn how to do it. They just don't feel like it. Listen, my dad is 86 and there is nothing wrong with his legs, knees, ankles, back, hips, none of that. But whenever I take him somewhere, he always wants me to drop him off at the door. And I was like, Dad, why don't you want to walk with me? If I'm apart, why don't you just walk with me? And he said, I don't want to. And I'm like, I asked him, what's wrong with your legs and everything? He said, nothing's wrong with them. I've been walking and standing for 86 years. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to do it as less as possible. But I did tell him, listen, there's people that can't walk, wish they could. So, that's a blessing that you can. But when it comes down to learning something new with technology or a platform, some age groups that are younger than the over 50 group think, oh, they're old, they don't know technology, they don't know tech. No, we can learn anything if we want to. If we don't know it, it's because we don't want to. Most of us have children, young adult children that are available to teach us or do it for us if we really want it done. So I think that is a myth that needs to go out the door for sure. And so, yeah, Vicky's saying she has to engage more, working on it just watch and listen. Yeah. And, engaging definitely takes a lot of effort. Sometimes, like I said, if you're just watching it from your television, you may not be in a space to engage. But if you are, even if it's just watching a short, sometimes I might go down to my subscribe button and just kind of, okay, let me see what people are doing. Because YouTube recommends so many new channels. It's crazy. They recommend, for me anyway, more new channels than channels that I'm actually connected with, which I find very interesting. So I always have to be very intentional when I do go. I almost have to look for the people that I'm connected with. So definitely. Yes, it was Picky Dell. And I actually had them on, I had her on my show. I interviewed her back in the day. It was during COVID, because during COVID, people was hot. They was popping. You hear me? And she had made, remember, she made those head wraps, those beautiful head wraps. And I remember having her on the head wraps and matching face masks. I miss them. I hope they're okay. Yeah, for sure. Yes, that part. Yes, we listen, we went through the payphone, you get your dime, then it went to a quarter. Then we had our I remember the emergency breakthrough. So my mother would be up late at night and waiting for me to call her to pick me up from the party or whatever. And she would just say, just do emergency breakthrough, because I'm gonna be talking to my sister. She would be talking to her sister on the phone, waiting for me, just trying to stay up. And so when the operator would say, "Would you take a emergency breakthrough from?" And when they would say "from," I would say, "I'm ready to be picked up." And my mother would just be like, no, I don't accept it," and hang up and then come pick me up. And that's kind of how we did that. But yeah, we had the pager, we had the cell phone, but it wasn't just any cell phone. I remember one of the wives, I think we were in New Orleans, and one of the players' wives had a cell phone in her car. She had a Lexus, for I think like a Lexus 400 or whatever. And this was when they would build the cell phones in the car in the armrest. And at that time, none of us had a cell phone. So we was like, oh shoot, you got a cell phone. That's what's up. And she was like, "It's all right, but I can't carry my car in the store." The cell phone stayed in the car because it was not mobile, but it was like, you outside, but you can't bring it inside. So she was like, "I can't carry my car, so it's not really all that." And we was like, "Oh shoot, that's crazy." But yeah, that was wild. Yes, those were the days during C19. YouTube was so hot. It was like the stock market, the way that people was just ticking and just, doing this. It was like playing double dutch. You jumping in, this one's live, that one's live. Everyone knew when the next person was going to go live. If I'm live right now, if I knew somebody else was going live, I would let everybody in my chat know, head on over to this person's live. I mean, the support was phenomenal. It really was. But I think what happened too is a lot of people probably got burnt out. And so, they took a break. And listen, taking a break from YouTube can be dangerous. I'm sweet 16 on here now. And so I've been on YouTube for 16 years. I was a viewer for the longest time, and really started developing content in these past 4 years. But if you take even a week, if you think, all right, I'm on vacation or I'm doing something, I don't have time, I'm just going to not be able to upload this week. That week turns into 3 to 5, 6, 10 months. And next thing you know, you look up and you've been out of touch because YouTube keeps moving. It's one of those things that don't stop, won't stop. And if you're not active in some kind of way, even if it's no more than putting a community post on your wall, like a posting um, a picture, or posting a motivational saying, you can get lost in the sauce. So try and stay active in some form of fashion, for sure. And again, shorts really help with that a lot. Yes, those party lines. I remember, my cousins in New York, their phone number started with 2 letters. It was like AR639, boom, boom. And it took a long time to know what the AR was in numbers, because that literally was their phone number. And then sometimes you'd be on the phone and then you hear somebody else's conversation popping up in your conversation. Yeah. Yeah, that was the best time to start uploading. It was a wave. And I feel, Vicky, that this wave is coming back. Everything recycles and becomes relevant again. The wheel has been invented. And so I feel like that was a huge wave. And now we're in this new wave of the over 50 group. Yes. Yes, 16 years. I am sweet 16. Listen, leading up to it, the 90 days leading up to my Sweet 16, I actually went live every day for 90 days. And that really helped grow my channel for sure. Um, it was a tough experience, challenging, but it was something that I did with intention, and I really felt accomplished when it was done. And I can absolutely say, oh, I can do it for 30 days. I could do it for 60 because I did it for 90, But yeah, I'm sweet 16. I'm like, I think YouTube might be 3 years older than me or something like that. Yes. Oh my goodness. Were you on the Zoom with her like at 7? Because I tried to go on with her at 7. I'm gonna have to just wait for the next 2 weeks because I really wanted to go. I love what she's doing with her membership. I think that's brilliant. And more people, I think, with membership should look into doing something similar to that. That's going to be very impactful, and I'm definitely excited for that. Yeah, your number had letters in it too. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's so funny. Those some back in the day. Oh, you went to the 1 o'clock. Okay, yeah, I couldn't make 1 o'clock. I had taken one of the people on my team. His birthday was Sunday, and I was out of town until today, and so our whole team took him to lunch today, which was really nice. All right, let me go back to my notes. I'm at number 2. And so number 2 deals with focus on solutions. You really want to focus on solutions. Let me find the image that goes with that. All right. So focusing on solutions is really important. You want to really have a mindset that encourages seeking solutions rather than fixating on the problem, because this can involve brainstorming multiple approaches to tackle the challenge. So if you get fixated on, oh, this is a problem, oh, I knew this was going to happen, this was never going to work, or whatever, then it will be very challenging for you to brainstorm things, other approaches around it. There's always a different view. There's always a different lens that you need to look through. Many people get into a situation that is very challenging and they get so fixated on the problem until it paralyzes them. And they feel like, whoa, woe is me, or they start having those pity parties and aren't able to move forward. And that's why you have to really look at it in multiple ways and have different approaches of how you can fix the problem. That's why when you're planning something, when you're, doing something big, a big event or a project or anything like that, just like a wedding, when you're planning a big wedding, you're thinking about it with the end results in mind. You want to plan backwards. So, and when you're planning, you want to talk about the what ifs. Okay, what if this happens? Okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to pivot. What if it rains? Then we have tents that are available to pop up. That's when you start really thinking about those really deep questions. But you want to really have a solutions oriented mindset when it comes to challenges that arise in your life. And if you are a parent and you have children, we have a lot of challenging situations that our young people go through. And for some reason, I'm noticing a lot of young people are having more and more anxiety, and even older people, and I think C-19 definitely started causing that. Again, it's because people were solo. They were working in silos. They weren't coming in. They weren't communicating with people as much, especially in person. And so now that things are writing itself up, everything is starting to get back to business as usual. Just about everything, just about is at business as usual. um people don't really know how to maneuver in those types of situations. So when something goes awry, when a challenge happens, they they just get really stuck. And young people especially, they get stuck and they just don't know how to think outside of that. So as, people with more wisdom, people that are more vintage, you want to be able to use your wisdom and share it with them about, okay, this happened, but let's look at it this way. Now you could probably do it like that. And I noticed that I even have to do that sometimes with my young adult children. When things come up, maybe their plans didn't go as planned, for that moment, for whatever reason. I always, find myself talking them through the process of, okay, it didn't happen that way, but it still can happen. It's just going to have to look like this. And those are real conversations. Sometimes you can't do it by yourself, and you do have to find a partner that can walk you through it as well. All right, so that's number two. You want to focus on solutions. Let me see. Yeah, I know. I'm glad that that sparked some ideas for you. I can't wait to catch one of her Zooms for sure. When you worked in the corporate world, that was one of the biggest things. My staff did complain. I finally had to tell them that things are going to happen. Everything isn't going to go your way. Yeah. And you think about what's causing the problems and what can actually bring to the table and try to fix it. Absolutely. You bring them all to the table and say, all right, this is what it is. Even, my workforce development participants, when if they're being observed and evaluated with their mentors when they're doing their on the job training, one of the most important things is if there's a problem, you got to figure out the solution. But there's three sides to every story. So typically, what I would do now, I don't go out and do the observations anymore. I have someone on my team that does that. But it's taking each person separately to hear their side, hear their perspective. What's the problem in their vision? Like, how is it impacting them? What is the triggers for them? How is it affecting them? And then when you hear both sides of the story, which typically will sound so different, but you can see that there is a solution, because it really is about lack of communication. And so when you hear both sides, you bring them at that point together. That's the thing. A lot of people are afraid to bring people together for some reason. And that's when you come up with those solutions. You start really troubleshooting and making people more aware of how they're showing up and how it's impacting the work that needs to be done. Or, how you're showing up is not necessarily you doing the bad thing, but you might have these biases and beliefs that you just are spilling over into that relationship, and it can make people feel uncomfortable, and that can cause them to not do their best. Do y'all know, it's so crazy? I don't know if you've ever seen this before, when you could be competent, or you can see a person that's really competent, they can do the work, they are very capable of doing it, but because they get so bashed, they get so um ran over and just not appreciated for whatever reason, even though they're the most competent to do that, everything they do is wrong. And not just someone saying you did it wrong, but they just seem to can't they just can't do it right. It's like mentally they just always will miss a step or something, and they just are beating themselves up. And that's why you really have to have that mediator, that third party, to come in and sit everyone at the table and try to figure it out, because the person that's competent is not being their best because of how they're being treated, how they're feeling about the way they're being treated, whether it's true or not, because the other person may not even recognize that they're treating them that way. And so a third person can see that. And it's really important to have that kind of opportunity and situation available. I know that a lot of companies have what's called ERP. You can have mediators, from there, if you have an HR, employee relations, something like that, but have someone to come in and intervene for sure. All right, the third one is embracing collaborations. Embracing collaborations. I love being collaborative. Oh my goodness. So when you are embracing collaborations, You want to use challenges to strengthen relationships by working together with others towards a common goal and fostering teamwork and trust. You want to have people on there that are capable of doing it. You want to be able to delegate and assign and trust that they're going to get it done, not micromanage them, but fully trusting them, letting them know exactly what you're looking to accomplish and what their piece in that puzzle is really going to be. Empower them in that way. And this also works personally and professionally. So again, I'm 55, I'm double nickel up in here. And I have many friends that are getting married for the second time. And in some cases, I have friends that are over 50 getting married for the first time, which, I think that's so beautiful. And they are in their 50s, but up to this point in their life, even if it is their second or third marriage, they have had to be very independent. And now they have this partner that's there to support them as well, and as well as them supporting their partner. So it's a two-way street for sure. But for some reason, a lot of them are finding it challenging to understand that they're not alone in this. And so they continue to do things as if they don't have that partner. And in that instance, they have to truly embrace the collaboration with their partner, lean on each other, not just one leaning on the other, but lean on each other, be that sounding board for each other, be that support for each other. And so this also holds true for your professional life, whether you have a business or a career, and there are many great opportunities to collaborate. So many people try to reinvent the wheel. So many people have projects they're working on, events they're trying to plan, standards they're trying to create, and they always are scratching their head trying to figure it out. Like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, this is so hard. I'm not good with IT, or whatever the case may be. Well, guess what, there's someone maybe even on your team that's really good at doing that. That's not their title, but that's something that they do great at. Somebody might be very creative, but you don't know that because maybe they are a recruiter, and they're not in marketing, but they know how to do that. So you want to find out what the strengths are of the people that are around you. So one great thing is to have like team building opportunities where you might do an assessment. It could be Big Five, it could be DISC, it could be a variety, Strength Finders, and find out not only what your team's strengths are, but your strength and how does that fit on the team. Those types of assessments help you determine who to go to for what on your team. A lot of times people be like, listen, we don't have to pay somebody. No, you don't. You're already paying somebody. And that person right over there, they can absolutely do it. I know there was an instance, a woman was mismatched position, and she was able to do the job, but she was doing it very dry, just doing it status quo, business as usual, not really having a big contribution and getting passed over for so many things. And she wasn't even mad that she was getting passed over because she knew she wasn't doing anything special to require any type of elevation. But after I coached her, I recognized, and I didn't even know this about her. She's kind of like that person that would sit in the corner, very, very quiet talking, and just someone that slips into the room. You don't even know they're there. And she is one of the most creative people. This particular organization had newsletters that were dry. They weren't creative, weren't colorful. The stories were just, okay, this is what happened. And I told her, I said, you're such a creative. You really need to be over that newsletter. And eventually she did become over that newsletter and did a phenomenal job. She showed up even happier. She stepped out of her box, out of her comfort zone, took ownership of what she was doing, and excelled. So, that was a collaboration where she had to go and gather the information from the other members of the team to figure out what to put in that newsletter. She really barely spoke to them before that. But, the person that was doing the newsletter before didn't prefer it. She didn't like it. That was out of her wheelhouse. But instead of her reaching out to figure out, well, who on my team is a creative, she just stuck with it. And here we are with that other creative, and it worked out well. So you want to know the strengths of everyone on your team, including yourself, so that you can always be put in the right situation for sure. That goes a long way. And again, when you are in a personal relationship, especially with a partner or spouse, you really need to know, okay, are you the one that's going to do the bills? Are you better with balancing things out? Are you going to be the one that's cooking? Are like figure out what everyone's strengths are and know that you're in this together, and that works out so much better. Sometimes though, when people get into challenging situations, they recoil and they go to what they know. And sometimes it's going inside themselves, maybe not speaking, maybe having an attitude. And if that is you, you have to have more self awareness. Emotional intelligence is a thing, and understand like what are those stressful situations that are making you feel that way. See them coming. Listen, especially if you're over 50, you know what those stressful situations are, you know what those challenges are. You see them coming, you really see them coming. And when you see them coming, know what your typical response is. And if your typical response is not helping you achieve the goal, if it's not helping you to still be your best regardless, then you need to have some self-talk and do the opposite of what you typically would do, so that you can continue to thrive even in those challenging moments. All right. The next one on number 4, I hope you all are writing this down. Let me see. Number 4 are your lessons learned. Lessons learned. I love lessons learned. So you want to identify lessons learned. You want to reflect on what each challenge teaches you about your skills and resilience. It helps you prepare for future obstacles. And I say this all the time when I'm coaching people. Listen, when you're going through one of the most challenging times in your life, it feels like you have this bag on your back and you're digging underground trying to get out. And when you're digging, you have that shovel and you're just throwing dirt on the back, behind you, trying to get through that tunnel. But as you're throwing that dirt behind you, there are gems in that dirt. There's diamonds in that dirt. They're covered, but they're there. So you need to start feeling around for what is really valuable and putting them in that bag that's on your back so that it can carry those valuable nuggets. That's why I always say, what is one nugget? What is a nugget that you got from this? Because that's something of value. And yeah, when you get out of that tunnel, you'll step up and you'll be in the sunlight and you'll be like, oh, right, I made it. But guess what? There's going to be another tunnel. You walk a few more steps, it's going to be another tunnel right there. And you should be better prepared because you have those nuggets from the last tunnel you came through. But in so many cases, people don't recognize those lessons. They just so happy to be out. They don't even care. They be like, I don't know how I did it. Listen, I'm out. That's all I know. And then when they get into the next situation that may even mimic the situation they just came out of, they still wailing around. They still don't have a life jacket on, still can't swim, and it becomes even that much more challenging. And that's when they start saying, this always happens to me. I don't know why, but in my life, everything goes wrong every time I get to this point in my life. That's because you haven't learned a lesson. There's a lesson to be learned in everything that we do. And the sooner you can learn that lesson, that is the more powerful and empowering it'll be for you. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to tell you. And so when you get into those next situations that's similar to a situation you've been in, I'm telling you, listen, people forget. And when I'm recalling things as I'm living through my life, my 55 double nickel life, and I'm recalling things, it's because I've seen it before. And I know what it looks like. And I know how to overcome it. And it actually makes me laugh. It's funny to me. Because I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I know what this is. This is what this is. And I have all the tools. I have all the valuable things with me right now that's going to help me get through it. Like, this is nothing to me. And some people will be like, yo, this is like life to me. This is really hard. I don't see how you moving. Like, why aren't you stressing out? Because I've seen this. I've been through this. I know we're gonna get through it. It's nothing to it, for real. Just every day, let's just do one more thing. And so those life lessons learned are remarkable. Never forget. Write it down. That's why journaling is so powerful, because yes, we will forget. So you need to keep it somewhere so that you can recall it by reading it over at some point. um I always say, write it down. That's why I'm like, y'all should have pen and paper. Where's your pen and paper? Why are you not writing this down? If I'm doing a training and I know I'm getting ready to say something, getting ready to drop the mic, I tell people, I need you to take your pen out right now and write this down. You who don't have a pen. And typically, when I do trainings, especially in the community, I always make sure, how you have that swag for your business, different things, whatever. I always try to make sure I have a little notebook and pen, like that combo that I can just give out. Usually have about 50 of them to give out to the people that are coming. Cause I'm like, if you don't have nothing to write with, here you go. I got something right here. So definitely those lessons learned. All right. Remember those. All right. And now this is the fifth one. The fifth one. The fifth tip. And the fifth tip is reframe questions. You want to change the narrative by asking different questions, such as, how does this align with my long term goals? You want to ask yourself that when you're doing something, you want to be like, is this aligned with me? Or what strengths can I leverage here? How is it going to make you even that much better? What are some things that you're going to glean from this experience? Because sometimes we may find ourselves in a challenge that we shouldn't even be in. And they are so far off from what our values are and goals, and they somebody might have just stuck you in something, and they're just like, oh, you know what, you so good at this, can you help me out? It could be a friend, a family member, a colleague, whatever. And you might get into it because you're so nice. You might say, okay, yeah, that sounds like a cool thing, I like that. And you get in it and you be like, this is not, I don't even know what this is. You feel like you're wasting your time and you really didn't ask enough questions. That actually happened to me recently. There was someone putting on this huge, huge event, and I have a large circle of influence. I have a lot of external partners that are phenomenal. And when I have an event and ask people to gather, they gather. And so this person knew that I had that large circle. And so they were like, oh, can you do this? Can you let, your people know about this? And so I'm not thinking, I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay. And then I was just thinking like, yeah, I'll send an email and just let them know. I mean, I'm not going to do much. But this person was like putting me all in charge of it. It was like a big deal. And I said, hold on. I kept hearing my name, my whole name, my first and last name coming up like, oh yeah, she got it. She got it. And I'm like, God, what? I don't have it. And so I started like asking more questions, which I should have did in the beginning, about what is this? And this person could not fully explain to me what the event was. Like, how something, but you really just can't put it into words. It was kind of that situation. And so it was clearly important to her, but it wasn't as important to me. It wasn't part of my values or goals. And I was busy. So I'm like, okay, wait, you want me to do all of this? I'm not even sure what it is. I don't even know how to message it to my partners properly because you're not giving me any real meat around it. And I'm busy. Like, I got my own stuff that I have to do. Like, this is crazy. So I pulled out, after a while, I just pulled out and I was like, here's my resource list of people that I think, if I'm correct of what you're doing, that would be interested. And this is a run a show. This is a plan that I've used because she didn't have a run a show. It was just, I just didn't understand. It was not fully developed enough. So I said, this is an example of a good run of show plan. You can plug in whatever, but I can't, like, please, you can't put my name on that, because you got to remember, if you don't ask a lot of questions and you've been asked to do something and your name is attached, that's your brand. So people are automatically, if it's a great thing, they're going to remember you. If it's not a great thing, they're going to remember you. So you have to make sure that it is aligned with your goals and values for sure. All right. Um, so you want to ask questions. Sometimes when I may have someone on my team or a coaching client that is like, It could be with their business. Maybe they had a challenge with their contract or whatever, and they tell me about the challenge that they are encountering, and I'll say, well, did you ask this or did you ask that? I run down a series of questions, and they're like, no, I didn't even ask. I didn't even think to ask. So you really have to keep your head on the swivel when you are involved in certain situations. And if those challenges do come up, you want to always be able to ask clarifying questions. You want to be able to ask, well, who else can I connect with? And just always try to keep some type of questions at the top of your mind so that you can always be prepared. And if you don't know what type of questions to ask, just go back to old school. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Figure out what's the who type of question, what's the where, the when, and ask it in that way for sure. So those are those five strategies. So again, it's you want to shift your perspective, focus on solutions, embrace collaboration, identify lessons learned, and reframe questions. Those are the five tips for reframing challenges. Now, when that happens, by adopting these strategies, you can definitely transform challenges into valuable opportunities for personal and professional development for sure. I'm going to go back down in here. I see James Money is in the building too. Thank you for being here, James Money 615. Great to see you. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. It's good to see you. Oh, yeah, I wish I would have came down into the chat again, Vicky, to see when you said you used to be like that, trying to figure it out on your own. Yes, you have to trust your issues with your coworkers, with your colleagues, your employees, whatever the case may be. And if they fail, it's a learning experience for them too. And for you, that maybe you need to message it better, give them better directions. But for them, they may need to upskill themselves in an area that they thought they were skilled in. So you just have to really trust all of that. And you're saying, I think in the past I was afraid to ask questions because I was worried it wasn't the right questions. Yeah, and I tell people at the door, like, there's no right or wrong question. It's what's ever true for you. So I always say this, especially with my workforce development participants, their mentors. Common sense is not common to everyone. It's not saying that you don't have common sense. It's just that your common sense is different. So your questions, the way you might look at something is different. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's not wrong either. But it's a question that needs to be asked because, you need clarification, and that's just going to make you better. Even when I do training, I always say this is a safe space. Definitely feel comfortable to ask anything, because trust, I have some questions that I'm just like, ooh, I'll be in meetings and I'll write them down. And I'm like, okay, maybe if I'm thinking this question, but let me write it down and see if I read it back to myself, does it make sense? And I'll read it back to myself and I'm like, oof, I don't know. And sometimes if I don't ask it, somebody else will. And people will be like, oh, that's a brilliant question. And I'm like, what? That was my question too. Wow, that's interesting. So once I started having many more of those types of scenarios, it really gave me that, I guess, that courage to just ask the question anyway. And sometimes I'll say, listen, I was just thinking, or this may not even fit this situation, but this is my thought on it, and I'll just go ahead and say it. And 9 times out of 10, Vicky, you'd be surprised, it is right on point. And you'd be surprised that other people also had that question, but they just weren't comfortable to ask it. Hmm. Yes, people need to feel safe and comfortable, y'all. I did a teaching fellowship at a middle school through an AmeriCorps program, and it was a Title I school, and it was a very challenging situation. But I learned to build that trust with my students. And when I did, what I would do, and they were seventh and eighth graders, I would close the door, in the beginning of the class. And I would always tell them, this is because, they are middle school. So they switch classes and they giving all the other teachers hell. And so when I wasn't there, if I would like not come in for whatever reason, and they would have to be dispersed for my period, teachers would be like, how do you do it? Like they were so bad, whatever. And I'm like, they're not like that with me. But I had to tell my class too, listen, we like a family. So when you go out there in them streets and them hallways, you still representing my class. And we are we are representing each other. So I don't expect you to, be raising ruckus wherever you go. And you also representing your family. So, but I would close the door and I would always tell them, this is a safe place. We're not picking on each other. We're not joking in that way. We can laugh, absolutely. But if somebody says something that's not right, it's not funny because it might be a question you might have that, somebody else might look at it as funny and you wouldn't want them to laugh at you. And that's where I came up with Real Talk with Coach Sherri. They didn't know my first name was Sherri, but I would say Real Talk with Miss in my last name. And I will pull up a stool and just sit in the middle of the class and be like, all right, let's have a real talk. What's going on, in your community, how you're feeling, what classes are you struggling with? What kind of resources do y'all need? This is a safe place. We're not talking about anything we're talking about in this room. I don't want to hear it in the hallways. And I never did. It was just the most open dialogue ever. And I remember one little girl was telling me how, well, and I was just like blown away. And I don't know if you've ever seen a documentary. It's called Hidden Valley Kings, and it was a big gang in Charlotte, and this area was called Hidden Valley as well, and that's where all was started or whatever. But she was telling me how, like, at that time, this was years ago, but at that time, how her and her uncle got caught in a what do they call it? Um, when people go and they just start shooting people, what's it called? I don't even know why I brought that up. I can't even remember the name of it, but it's like a crossfire thing, but it's a point where like the police don't really do anything to help anybody. And it's called something, it starts with a P, I believe. And I was like, what? This seventh grader girl telling me this was just like, what? So it was really interesting. But because it was a safe place, she definitely felt safe in sharing that information. And you just never know when you do set up a safe place how people will respond and how it really will help them and encourage them and help them grow. Hey, Carter's Eat, welcome in. How are you doing? It's so good to see you. It is so good to see you. And Vicky, what I'm talking about is actually a movie. Not from that area, but it's called whatever it's called, and it's a movie. They have a couple of series of it. I remember because I was just blown away. And the kids in the class, and she was a really good girl. Like she wasn't that one that to kind of elaborate or say something that's not true necessarily. So she was dead serious, and I was just like, what? She said, yeah, we had to go under the car. I was like, what? Oh, it was crazy. So, everyone, I appreciate you all for being in here. Vicky's World, Carter's Eat in the building, James Money 615 came through. And for those of you that are watching this in the replay, thank you. And for those of you that are here, but you just could not drop down in the chat, I appreciate you. If you would later on, just in the replay, especially, let me know which of the 5 tips on reframing challenges resonated with you the most. Again, these may be tips that you've heard before. These are aha moments, maybe that you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I'm gonna do that next time. So let me know which of the 5 tips. And again, the tips are: number 1, you want to shift your perspective. Number 2, focus on solutions. Number 3, embrace collaboration. Number 4, identify lessons learned. And number 5, reframe questions. All right, it's been my pleasure sharing this information with you. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the evening. It is Friday Eve. What? This has been a wonderful week, although today felt like Monday to me. So, but anyway, take care. Remember, practice so hard every day that when you get in, you will always play to win. I am Coach Sherri.